there was an arts festival in 1984, which somebody might remember, it was Parisians. And they put on this art festival in Huntsville, and they asked me to be a judge for the music thing. And of course I was going to be in with other music educators. I don't know why they asked me, but yeah, I'll do it. So I go over there and they have this person assigned to me to show me around Huntsville, which is kind of funny, but I mean, like I need to be shown around Huntsville. But she said that we need something for kids. She was a daycare recreational therapist that's not so condescending. You know, these little tinky piano things and all that. Well, at the time I didn't say this, okay? But I'm thinking, I'm a big-time record producer. I don't produce songs for children. I didn't say it, but I'm thinking, is she kidding me? She doesn't know. She doesn't get it. But I came back and I started thinking about it, and it was October. And in October 1984, nothing's going on. The artists are out doing shows and stuff. And so I thought, well, it might be fun to do a Christmas album. You know, everybody wants to have a Christmas hit, so we did 5 or 6 songs, Jingle Bells, and we did them real hip sounding, and we had the background singers singing on it, and Cindy and Marie and the different ones. And we had one side that didn't have singers, it just had the tracks, and we had one side the singers, and that hadn't been done at that time, where you could just have a music track. Sent it out to the daycares in Alabama, and we got back 100% response. And the part that was so cool is they would say in little 2-inch high letters, "Thank you, Mr. Woodford, we want more music." People behind the scenes don't get much attention. You know, they just don't. The artists get all the attention. So I thought, well, what am I going to do for my kids now? You know, it's like it made me feel so good. And I thought, well, nap time. So I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'll just record Rockabye Baby and Mary Had a Little Lamb, typical songs that have been around 200 or 300 years. But if I do that, and Jimmy Johnson and Rick Hall and them find out, they think he's on the way out. He's making lullaby recordings. You know, he's really in trouble, which I probably was. And it became a technical challenge. I'm trying to record this heartbeat. And the thing is such low frequencies because I got to do something to be cool. So I'm going to record where a baby lays its head on a mama, right? And I'm going to make that the drums. And lullabies don't have percussion. They don't have drums on them, right? But mine's going to have a human heartbeat as the drums. And I couldn't get it. I realized it had to be in tempo, and the heart doesn't beat in tempo. So we had to record it one beat at a time. And then space it, beat, space it. Then we'd overdub because by that time we had multi-track recorders, which means you could record one instrument at a time, the singer could do it different. You could take 3 months to make an album, which we did sometimes, because you had separate control. And the tape at that time, instead of monaural tape, was that size. And it cost $200 a reel. And if you multiply that times the 8, it's $1,600 a reel. So I got 5 songs. I had the singers holding little dolls. And the singers, I'm going to tell this. I kept contemplating, do I want to tell this or not? Back in the day, and it's still that way, I would assume, is the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, AFTRA. If you go on TV, you have to be a member of AFTRA. If you sing on records, you have to be a member of AFTRA. I was a member of AFTRA. I used to sing on commercials for Budweiser, and you remember that one, When You Say Budweiser, you said it. That one, American Dairy Association. And so you had a choice. If you're the lead singer, you can be a royalty singer and you get a certain amount per song, or you can be a non-royalty singer and you get a lot more per song up front. Every one of the singers on my music chose to get bigger money up front. Too bad. I mean, I would have done the same thing, to tell you the truth. But I'm sure that a lot of them are probably kicking themselves now, you know. So they had to sing straight. I don't want to hear your identity. I want to hear this sing straight so mamas can sing along with you, right? So Dr. Canaroo started using it in his office just to see what it was like. He only had 5 songs then. And he got such a good response, he said, let's test it in the newborn nursery. And so you'll see that picture of Gene Jackson and Betty White, who I don't think Betty's with us any longer, but Gene, I don't know where Gene Jackson is. Her last name's not Jackson anymore, but she's around here somewhere. And they tested 59 babies over a 6-week period, and 94% of the crying babies stopped crying in less than 2 minutes. Now, they told me that. I knew that was an A, right? 94%. But so what? You know, babies cry in the newborn nurseries anyway. Does it really matter? And you'll see another picture with Gene Jackson and a guy named Eddie Parker. And Eddie Parker and I used to do video projects all the time for the New York Times and different other places. And he was from Huntsville. He's one of the nicest people you'll ever know. And he was the one in there taking pictures at Helen Keller and videoing at Helen Keller. And so I get this call, and he had given a copy of the cassette, which is what it was back then, to the University of Alabama Birmingham's cardiac recovery unit. And they called me up and said, we'd like to talk to you about your little heartbeat lullabies. Could you come down and meet with us? Yeah, you know. I mean, it's not University of Alabama. You know, it'd be hard to do that being an Auburn graduate, but. So I go down there. I think I'm going to meet them in an office, and they take me in the cardiac recovery unit. Oh, God. I'd never even been a patient in the hospital until about 1.5 years ago, right? And I see these little babies, like you're going to see those pictures, cut from the neck to their belly button, and tubes and monitors and beepers and buzzers, and I had to put my head down between my legs or I was going to fall out. And the nurses are all excited, and they say, watch this. And they show me the heart rate monitor was around 200. And I'm looking at it, and they started playing London Bridge. And that heart rate started coming down. In less than 15 seconds, it was down to about 120, which I guess was about normal for a baby. Freaked me out. I didn't know what it meant, you know what I mean? But I knew it was something, because they were excited. And they said, they explained to me by BPD and, you know, all these things about the babies get the oxygen if they stay on the things too long. They can't get off. And I mean, you know, I don't know. I'm a rock and roll record producer. I don't know any of this, and I didn't have anything to do with textiles either. So they said, but is there a way you could play it at a lower volume and still be effective because it's making the nurses tired? And I'm thinking, you know, they're putting me on, you know, but it's such a serious environment. You take them serious. So if you'll notice in that picture, I got a little piece of 4-inch sewer pipe, PVC, put a 4-inch speaker in it, because the bigger the speaker, the lower volume, you can hear the heartbeat better. And put this little grill cloth on it, and they took that down there, and they were able to use it and play it at a lower volume. So I was doing television news stories and talk TV, and I did one in Tampa, Florida, that I'd done 3 or 4 times with this guy. He was a killer, he was a funny guy. And I got a call, our office got a call from this woman who said she was doing a research project at the University of South Florida, and they would like to try the baby go to sleep, which is what we called it back then, on people in nursing homes, because they're looking for alternatives to physical restraints and sedatives. And physical restraints and sedatives, are you kidding me? Do they do that to people in nursing homes? I didn't know, you know, and they don't want to do that. So I said, sure, send them a cassette player and cassettes. That same week, I get a call from Lutheran Medical Center. At one time I thought it was Cleveland, but it was Cincinnati. And they said, we heard about your music from pediatrics, and we're a geriatric unit, and we'd like to try it with our geriatric patients. And I'm thinking, these are older people. They've got certain musical tastes. Some like R&B, some like country, some like whatever. They're not like lullabies, right? But still, I sent them up there. I started thinking about it. Why not make music from the 30s and 40s for these people, older people, right? Because that would be when they were teenagers. So I called the UAB in Birmingham. I said, what about for your open heart surgery patient adults? I'm going to do this. And they said, oh, okay, we'll try. We'll get permission from the surgeons and we'll try it. Same thing in Cincinnati. And it was too late in Florida because they'd already finished their project. So I recorded Laura's theme, Moon River, right? Scarlet Ribbons. What was some of the others? Amazing Grace. And one other one that I never can remember. But anyway, you get the idea, the old songs, but no singers this time. I'm just going to have instrumental with the human heartbeat. I got it down now. I've worked on this stuff. I know how to do it, you know. So I sent it out, and I waited, sent it up in Cincinnati, sent it to UAB, and I knew the people at UAB, so I'm going to call them first. I waited 3 months. I mean, come on, how can this thing miss anyway? Everything's the same, just different songs, no singers. So the head nurse at UAB says, I'm sorry, but we can't use your adult version. And I'm thinking, either they did something wrong or the surgeons wouldn't let them. I said, well, what's the problem? And she said, well, you've spent a lot of time here, which I had. I'd gone back and forth there and observed the babies and adding songs, you know, to where I got 10. And she said, we bring the patients, as you know, right after the surgery. We got them laying there. We got the boom box playing, you know, but a lot of times the anesthetic will wear off before the paralyzation does. So they're laying there and they can see and they can hear, but they can't feel anything and they can't move, and on comes Amazing Grace. They think they're dying. It doesn't look like heaven. She said their heart rate goes up. She said, we can't take a chance. And I am so embarrassed. I mean, I didn't even think, you know. But I'm not going to give up that easy. So I called Cincinnati and I said, well, how's it going? And she said, I'm sorry, but we can't use your adult version. And I'm thinking, I said, Amazing Grace, right? She said, no, the problem is Moon River. I said, Moon River? What's wrong with Moon River? And she says, we know for some, that's the guy or girl that got away. That's their song. Some, it's fine, you know. But she said, but I'll tell you one thing, that little baby when you got's working great. I'm thinking, I said, why? What do you think? You know, because that's where I learned all my stuff from nurses and social workers. I spent a lot of time with them. And so, on a professional level. And so, she said, well, you don't know why we have these people in the geriatric unit. And the truth was, I didn't know what a geriatric unit was, really. I knew it was for old people, I guess. She said, we're a referral hospital for about a 200-mile radius of nursing homes. And the people that are in here, for the most part, are people in the nursing homes who did not get visitors. I'm thinking, you know, I'm not getting it. She said, you don't get visitors, you don't get as good a care. She said, you ought to make sure that if you're ever in a nursing home, let your daughters know to make surprise visits and you'll get better care. She said, so when they hear this, if they flash back, she said, you've heard Oldie Goldie Radio, they called it, right? And you hear that song, you remember the first time you heard it and who you were with, you can almost relive that experience. Does that happen to you? She said, when they heard these, they were either being calmed or they were calming their children, grandchildren, or they're being calmed by their mama, their grandmama, and they flash back to those songs and they feel safe and they feel secure and they feel loved. And they smile. So then I realized it works on adults. What am I going to do now? Nobody's going to believe this. So I didn't do anything. I'm too busy in the neonatal intensive care units and going around the country. I went to all states but 4, making speeches to nurses, to doctors, to hospitals, to social workers. I'm motivated to get this thing out there because I know it's really making a difference in people's lives. And so then Paul Harvey had it on. Now that was a thrill. The Hill part, and now the rest of the story. I said, trouble is he didn't say how to get it, you know what I mean? How to get this heartbeat lullaby and with the human heartbeat and stuff. But we had more hospitals buying them and giving them away. Helen Keller was the first. They bought them and gave the new parents one of them. And so in 1991, we decided to move to Colorado Springs. Now, Marilyn Eason worked for me, if any of you remember her. She's Marilyn Eason Lawson now. She was a whiz. She had no experience in media. She could book me on TV shows like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, 700 Club, you know, CBS News in New York, and then local TV. So we go to Kansas City, we hit the 3 new news stories, tell them it was at J.C. Penney's. That's where it was, J.C. Penney's or Eckerd Drugs. We got Dayton Hudson's as a retail store. But that was after we moved to Colorado Springs, which is more centrally located. And if I'm gonna have to fly all over the place, you don't want to leave out of Muscle Shoals. It's too expensive, you know. And it'd take you too long because you got to go through Atlanta or you got to go through Memphis or, you know. And so I went to England and did speeches in England and Canada, to the hospitals there, trade magazines, any way I could get the word out. And any hospital that asked for free ones, I sent it to them to use in their facility. I'm not going to send it to them if they didn't ask for it because they just throw it away. So everything is going great. Right? We got this 4-story home out there in Colorado Springs that we're operating out of. And I had about, I don't know, 10 employees. We're shipping to, you know, different chain stores. I mean, and then when they order, JCPenney order, they order, you know, $250,000 worth of tapes up front, eventually CDs. So all of a sudden, after 11 years, JCPenney's dropped us, didn't tell us anything, right? Now this is a lot of money coming in that we're not going to get anymore, right? And we lost Eckerd Drug Stores, which was bought by, I don't remember whether JCPenney bought them or they bought, I think JCPenney bought them. And so I have an emergency phone call happening at our offices. I told the girl, she was kind of a new girl who was answering the phones, I said, don't interrupt. We're having a very important meeting, just take their name. So we're sitting there, and 5 minutes into the meeting, the girl says, well, I know I'm not supposed to interrupt you, but this woman said she's from the Pentagon. And I said, that's one of my friends. They used to do that stuff all the time. They'd make up some name just to get through, you know. And one of the Rolling Stones called me one time, right? So I said, well, you tell the Pentagon, I'll call them back. So the meeting goes on for about 2 or 3 hours, and the truth is, we didn't come up with anything. I don't know how to replace the amount of money we were selling to them. And I decided to call the Pentagon back. I don't recognize the number. And the guy answered the Pentagon, I almost fell out of my chair. I said, oh my God, they must want me to be, all my family's military but me, right? Maybe they want me to be a spy. I mean, I don't know. I mean, those things go through your mind. And she said, he said, let me transfer to Army Community Service. I get over there and she said, we heard about your music from the Air Force. And she said, you had sent it to this woman outside, I can't remember the Air Force Base up in Northern California. They'd asked us to send them to her, and she was an at-risk mother for abuse. And anyway, so we heard about it. Could you quote us on $50,000? I said, God. Now to be cool, I said, well, let me get back with you. And I'm thinking, I could have quoted her just like that, but I hadn't, I didn't want to look too excited. We're in trouble, right? And this call comes in. We got an order for $50,000 from the Army. She set us up with Army Community. It's called A something anyway, where you have to be a approved vendor. Then we got an order from the Air Force. Eventually got an order from the Navy, the Coast Guard, and I'm thinking, the heck with JCPenney's? We don't. You know what it was like working with JCPenney's and these big chains? They came up with a system called an EDI system. And it was electronic data information. So all the orders came in on computers and everything. You have to send this, and it was, my main salesperson had to learn about all that stuff, not selling, right? And we sold to Focus on the Family, the Christian version, and Aid Association for Lutherans, which I think they call it something else now. So I started making speeches to military installations. Now that was a trip. I went to Hawaii and did it. That was too bad. And spoke at the University of Hawaii while I was there, and got back on my cruise ship and came back, But for the most part, except for the Air Force Base out in, I'm trying to think of where they shoot up all the missiles. What's the name of it? All of a sudden my mind's gone blank. It's what? No, not Edwards. It's the other one on the coast where they shoot all the missiles all the time. I'll think of it in a minute.
Vandenberg?
Yes, Vandenberg. So I'm driving along to go out to Vandenberg to make my little talk. And you're coming down the coast, and there's the gate. I go to the gate, and these two guys come out with a machine gun. This is a Barry Gordy story, right? Where do you think you're going? I said, I'm going to make a talk. They said, not through these gates. And all of a sudden, I realized this is a pretty well-guarded place. You go on up, he said, and I go in there. I wasn't allowed to go in. I had to go to this room, give my driver's license, and they came and got me and kept somebody with me the whole time. And this is before 9/11, right? And I spoke to the doctors there, and I spoke to the new parent support programs who were really buying them. And what they found out was, you see, crying is the primary trigger for infant abuse. Over 95% of the babies that are battered or hurt is because they couldn't stop the crying. This music stops the crying sometimes in 5 seconds. Look on the Baby Go to Sleep website and you'll see them on TV news stop crying in 5 seconds. And I'm thinking, I'm always thinking these babies are not going to do it, but they do every time when you're on the news stories, you know. So then I started thinking, well, maybe I should write a little book, right? And so I write this little book called You Don't Have to Let Your Baby Cry. And why did I say that? Because I was a baby when Dr. Spock was around, who screwed up our generation. He told everybody to let your baby cry, to sleep, right? What about these mamas and daddies that aren't getting sleep, and the more sleep deprived they are, the stupider choices they make, right? And so I studied this stuff. Every time a new use came for it, I'd study it. I'm self-employed. I can do what I want, right? And it dawned on me what happened. And Dr. Richard Ferber came out and screwed up the next generation by doing a watered-down version of Dr. Spock. Let them cry, but if they cry for too long, go get them. That was his thing. And it dawned on me what happened. It's World War II. After World War II, the women had been in the workforce in America, and these corporations said, hey, the women are doing better than the men in a lot of these positions. And the women liked having their own money and having their own job. However, when the men come back and they have babies, who's going to get up with the baby? The woman. That's a woman's job. Of course, they're both without sleep. So Spock comes up, says, well, if you let them cry, eventually they're going to adopt their favorite go-to-sleep place and position, whether they like it or not. You got a favorite position when you go to sleep? Have to be in it to go to sleep? I do. I won't tell you what it is. It's on my left side. And, surely you do. So does the baby. They get this favorite go-to-sleep place and position, and what is it usually if you continue to hold the baby and rock them completely to sleep? It's you. You are the favorite go-to-sleep place and position. If they wake up in the night and you're not there, it's wah, come and get me. That's what I noticed. So I said, okay, what you do here then is you rock the baby, it's okay. Do not let them go to sleep in your arms. Get that baby in that bed while they're awake. And that music is going to help make that transition from you to the bed. If they start crying as soon as you put them in that bed, keep your hand on them. You know, if they get way out of hand, pick them back up again. Calm them down, but get them in the bed awake. It won't be long to where they don't want you to rock them. They want to get in their bed and go to sleep. This works. It would probably work without the music, but I didn't tell people that. You know, the music does help a lot, calming them down. You know, and so I would see people using white noise machines. They still do. They've been doing it for 60 years. Shh, right? What is that? That's high frequency dissonant sound, and it masks the startled sounds in the environment. If you and I were sitting in a room and it was completely quiet, right? And somebody dropped a pin, it could be startling because it's the relative noise in the room relative to the sound that's being made, and it has to be 35 dB difference in volume. All that may not mean anything, but I can tell you right now, why I knew it was a problem is when I was a kid, I lived up north until I was in the 7th grade. And up there you get snow and you get crusty ice on the top of the snow sometimes where you can almost walk on it. It's so, and the branches start breaking off. And when you're a kid, the boogeyman is out there walking around. You can hear him, and then you can't go to sleep. So my dad would bring in a window fan. This is the winter time. And he'd turn on the window fan, which is high-speed metronized white noise. Now, what's wrong with that? I still have one. You become where you can't go to sleep without it. You know why? You will hear every little sound. When I go on the trips to do the TV shows and all the speeches and all that, I'd turn the television on a station that was off the air, turn it up because you see the snow and the gotta have it. I can't sleep or I'll wake up a lot of times in the middle of the night. That's something you shouldn't train a baby to have that problem. So the problem was, by the way, the military started buying them, and I sold over 400,000 to the military. They liked the book idea. The nurses, I'd go speak with the new parent support team people. And then there was a research project done at Akron Children's Hospital where they were playing it for the extremely premature babies, and they came out 11 days faster out of the neonatal unit. At that time, it was $3,000 a day to keep a baby in one of a neonatal unit. I have no idea what it is today. Then they did research to follow up at Cleveland Clinic, Metro Health in Cleveland. And I think they came up with 6 days, or I don't know. But here's what they used, which I thought was cool. It was called the Z-Box. And what it was, and this was like in the 80s, right? This was an MP3 player built in. And so it was standardized. It was going to be the same volume, everything's the same. Then later, in the early days, I came up with this mattress with this antibacterial fabric, and inside this mattress is what's called a low frequency driver. And the babies could feel the heartbeat just like they're laying on the mama. And they could hear the music in the mattress because the foam in the mattress act like a cone of a speaker, and they could hear it, but it didn't go into the isolate or into the incubator. So that way, it was more realistic to the babies, which was cool. Except that wasn't good because you can't. If you take a baby off that and you want to put it on another baby, you got to sterilize it and do that whole bit, right? It is antibacterial, but so what? You can't. It's real strict in the neonatal intensive care unit. So I came up with this that I had made in Japan, and all you have to do with this one is set it on the mattress, and it'll do the same thing. Cause the mattress to vibrate and that. So this was the book. The reason I brought the book is the first book had a crying baby on the front. I don't know whether you can see it or not. And my daughter, she said, that is really awful. You need to put a sleeping baby on there. And I said, but this is the problem, the crying baby. And then inside was a CD, but this was a special CD. It also had a video of all the ways you take care of a baby, and then it had the audio music as well. So we were the first ones to do one where it was a combination video audio. Stopped doing that because they didn't seem to care about it that much. So, but then we did the other book with the sleeping baby. So then, this has been going on for a few years now. I'm still out in Colorado Springs. And I started getting phone calls. My grandbaby CD put our dog to sleep. I'm thinking, come on. These are people that dress their dogs up in little clothes. And so I didn't pay attention. I was nice to them, But then it got intense. And people started calling them, trainers said, well, we had this hurt dog, and we were able to keep the dog calm by playing this CD. And, so I wrote an article for the American Boarding Kennels Association. And I told them, I've been getting these calls. I said, I'll send you the CDs, just test them for me and let me know what you think. So I took the baby CD, I put paper label on it. I'm not taking this too serious. And I put a little picture of a dog on there, and I called it K9 Lullabies, research done on human babies first. I thought that was funny. all the dog lovers, people would get a kick out of it, I thought. So they tested it, and I get back, I think it was over 100 kennels that said 90-something% of the dogs stopped barking, reduced diarrhea in the kennels, and I'm going, why would they lie? Nothing in it for them, But I still could have a hard, why I couldn't hardly believe it? I couldn't explain it. That was a big deal, because on the baby one, I get it. I really feel like God intervened on this, but I can't go out and say that, or people think they won't pay any attention to me. That was a mistake. Because if I saw those babies coming in that cardiac unit, I said, I didn't do that. And the angel in your arms this morning is going to be the devil in someone else's arms tonight did not save any marriages. And so this was my way. That's why I was so motivated to do what I felt like God wanted me to do. Now, the other reason I had trouble with the dogs, I said, does God really care about these dogs like the babies? I'm spending time on the babies, So anyway, I made up some with real packaging. It was awful packaging because it also calmed some chimpanzees out in Honolulu in the zoo. And so we had a chimpanzee and a baby and a dog on the same package. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have any peers. That was the other thing that was so weird. You don't have any peers, And so I get a call from the local. We had 2 humane societies in Colorado Springs, the No Kill and the Kill. The other ones didn't call themselves Kill, but that's what they were. And so I get a call. I sent them out to all the vets and the 2 humane societies and so forth. And I get a call from the No Kill shelter, and they said, we would like to talk to you about your canine lullabies. And she said, we would like some for Denver and some other locations, and how much are they? I said, well, they're free to you if you're just using them in your shelter. That's what I did with the hospitals for the babies. We'll do it for the dogs, right? So I said, how many do you need? She said, 8. I said, would you like them hand delivered? She called the 800 number. She had no idea they're only a mile and a half away. I'm sure she was surprised it was going to be hand delivered, I'd never been to a humane society or shelter before. And I go in there and I'm going to tell her about the UAB story. And she says, these are my babies. She said, do you want to see it work? It's 2 in the afternoon. Yeah, I'd like to see it work. So we go in there, and if you've never been in one, which probably most of you have, I guess I was just one that hadn't, you're walking down the aisle, the dogs start jumping up and down, right, and barking and stuff, and I'm kind of freaked out, to tell you the truth. And they had this boom box down in the corner on a table, and she said, watch this, and she turned on, here comes on London Bridge, first song. Every one of those dogs laid down in their cages. And I'm going, I said, let it keep playing and let me walk back down the aisle, because I figured as soon as they walk back down the aisle, they'll all start jumping again. Not one dog paid attention to me. Now, I didn't know how important that was, except those dogs are going to be a lot more adoptable. And then a lot less having kennel cough and things that I found out later as I visited humane societies and shelters around the country. They're being used in over 3,500 shelters now. And locally in Florence, both of those shelters, and I gave one to Colbert County, I don't know whether they've got it yet or not, but a couple, 3 weeks ago. They didn't ask for it, but they wouldn't know to ask, So I got to know dogs better and had 1, 2 actually. And then, I know I'm running a little late. I get this call from Dorothy Gargus Foote. Do you know Dorothy Gargus Foote? And she said, I heard about heartbeat lullabies. She said, I got a student over here at the University of Alabama, Huntsville, and he might like to use it with Alzheimer's patients. Now, I remember at Cincinnati geriatric unit, and I told her about that. In the meantime, my grandmother died of Alzheimer's, my aunt, my uncle, a lot of people in my family, right? So I sent her the CDs, sent her the Christian version too. Most hospitals would never use the Christian version at all. It's just the traditional lullaby version. And the military sure weren't going to buy them, except one time did. I was thrilled. That's Lenny LeBlanc singing on most of those. And so they played it twice a week for 30 minutes for 6 weeks. It dramatically decreased their demented behavior and increased their cognitive abilities. And I'm thinking, I better study Alzheimer's. I got to figure out what's going on here. Although a lot of it was pretty easy for me because I knew in the geriatric units they're relating to it and their long-term memory is better. And they're sitting in there with 60% of them don't get any visitors in an assisted living or in a memory care unit. And I'd visit the memory care units. I do not want to die that way. And these people are lonely. You know, they don't feel like anybody cares about them, and they want to go home. They'll come up with the most creative ways to break out. I watched them, and I went one here locally when I first got back, and this one guy, he was just waiting for the door to open. He creeped over kind of to the door, and knowing that somebody's going to come in from across they had another one across the way, and he was ready to go. So, and I went to the ones in Colorado Springs. It was just unbelievable. This one guy, I went to one that was real high end. I mean, it cost you lots of money to stay there. And this recreational person, music person, took me around, and they'd been using it. They have 3 different areas, and they're all locked off from each other, and it's just like a big giant home. And she took me over to this one area, and this guy there in his late 50s, she's talking to him. She said, "Today's a special day for you," whatever his name was. They're giving him an award in Chicago he had come up with some kind of chemical thing. He was a research guy. And he was just out there. He was just walking around, pacing. 59 years old, so it isn't just the real old people that get it. So anyway, I know I've taken too much. So does anybody have any questions? Oh, by the way, the military don't order them anymore. You know why? Technology can be a killer sometimes, can't it? People don't have CD players hardly anymore. I got nothing physical to sell them. So they stream. A lot of them stream. So we get a lot of streaming. I have no idea how to increase the streaming. I just know they do. And we get millions of streams every year on the dog one and on the baby one. Keep streaming. And the nice part about streaming for us, me, in reality, is my songs are all public domain. So I don't have to pay any songwriters or publisher royalties. All of the singers decided they wanted more money up front, so I don't have to pay any singers. I'm the producer, and I'm the record label. I get all the streaming royalties. Not that much, it's less than a penny a stream, but still it adds up, you know. And the nice part is, hopefully I've set up a little fund to where they'll stream, as long as they stream. It only costs about $400 or $500 a year to keep the streaming stores going, so when I die, then we'll keep that streaming going, if at all possible. Well, I appreciate you letting me come and talk to you, and I'm sorry I went over. I had not got a chance to time it. I had left a lot of stuff out, even from what I already had, to tell you the truth. I even had a page that says extra stories, which I didn't need any of those, I can see. So, thank you for coming.